Hi, my name is Robert Rockwood from Replenish Plus, and in this session we want to talk about your skin and its interaction with your body. If you want to make your skin healthy looking and you want to keep it young, what you got to do is understand it first of all. So let's go through a little of what the skin is all about. First of all, your skin represents about 16% of your total body weight. It's the largest single organ on your body. It has about 10 trillion cells in it. Your body has 10 trillion cells, and a large portion of those are in your skin. Your skin has three layers: the epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis. And all of those interact, and all of those can either make your skin look good or make it look bad if they're not connected properly. The epidermis is about the thickness of a piece of paper. And the epidermis on the bottom of that piece of paper is where new cells are constantly being formed. And they rise up, they actually connect to the dermis at first, and then they rise up through the skin, and when they reach the top, that's when they start to weather and die. In fact, that's what they're for. They're the sacrificial lamb. And that's known as keratin. Actually, the cells on the epidermis is keratin. By the way, that's what makes your hair also. It's dead cells of keratin. And you lose about 50 to 60,000 keratin cells every single hour. The average body loses about 1 million cells a day. In fact, when you're in your house, most of the dust you see in your house are dead human cells. And the thing that you want to do is, yes, they're coming off, but you want to replace them with fresh cells in order to keep the skin healthy. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is to have the right nutrition, the right vitamins, the right bioflavonoids, and the right enzymes. Underneath the epidermis, that top layer, is what they call the dermis. The dermis contains the veins, it contains your collagen, it contains the elastin. That's basically the strength for the epidermis. That's the structure, the foundation. Collagen is the strongest cell in your body. That's what firms up the skin in total. Collagen actually has a stronger tensile strength than steel. That's how strong it is. So you want to have as much collagen as possible to keep the upper or the outer portion of your skin looking firm, smooth, and wrinkle-free. Elastin is actually shaped like a coil. It's a cell that's shaped just like a coil, and you see the posturepedic. And actually, the idea behind the elastin is when you press on your skin, it allows the skin to bounce back up, so it doesn't leave an indenture, and also, if you have enough elastin, then obviously the skin doesn't buckle and also look older. And the veins, of course, in the dermis is connected to every part of your body. So as you get older, you produce less and less collagen and less elastin, and that's part of the aging process. Again, in order to keep your skin healthy, what you want to do is add as many vitamins and nutrients to the body so that you will induce it to produce more collagen and more elastin. Nutrition is critical for the dermis as well as for the epidermis. Underneath the dermis is what they call the hypodermis, and that's basically a layer of fat. That fat is thickest on your hands, your palms of your feet, your buttocks. That's where the thickest part of the hypodermis is, but it's throughout your whole body. And as we get older, the hypodermis tends to go into atrophy. It starts to thin out. And in fact, the thinning of skin is directly related to the thinning of the hypodermis, the fat tissues underneath. Again, in order to keep that fat level as thick as possible, and therefore your skin as healthy as possible, what you want to do is add nutrition, the right vitamins. For example, for collagen and elastin, vitamins A, C, and E are great. For the fat, by the way, on your hypodermis, it's the same thing, and it happens to be the same thing that you want in your epidermis. Maybe you want other nutrients in there also, but that's what you want to keep all three layers as healthy as possible. If the fat layers are solid, the epidermis is healthy because it has a lot of collagen and elastin, and your epidermis is constantly replacing the cells, guess what? You look young, your wrinkles, if they come at all, are very fine, but they disappear with the right nutrition in there. So the trick is, so many people go out and they say they want to moisturize your skin. No, you want to nutritionalize your skin. In fact, moisturizing is exactly the wrong thing to do. The way most skincare companies moisturize the skin is they all tend to use the same process. If you look at your jars of skincare cream, you'll see lots of water as the #1 ingredient. It's actually up to 50% of the total jar. Then underneath that is a whole bunch of chemicals, and most of those chemicals are for a purpose. The water is to cut down the cost of the manufacturer. It really doesn't do you that much good, but as long as it's in there, here's what the skincare companies do. You put on your moisturizer. The water goes underneath, but it will evaporate fairly quickly. So what they want to do, and what they do, is they block your pores, usually with things like mineral oils or all kinds of urea or whatever it may be. They block your pores, which is what they call being comedogenic. Your pores, by the way, should never be blocked, because the only way your body rids itself of toxins or cleanses it is through the pores. If you block them, you can't get rid of your toxins. But the skincare companies, they have a different thought process, and even though they may understand that, that's not their concern. If they can block your pores and keep the water inside, then it puffs up your skin. And as long as your pores are plugged, then your skin looks a little better. And you say, wow, it's working, I moisturize. Of course, as soon as you wash off the petroleum products, as soon as you get rid of the blockage to your pores, and you can't, sometimes you don't block them as well as, unblock them as well as you want, then the water evaporates out and you're right back to where you are. So moisturization is the complete opposite of what you want. At Replenish Plus, we nutritionalize. We don't use any water. We don't put in any toxins. We don't use any petroleum products or any chemical. We're putting a product with basically just organic, biological, Mother Nature, botanical, skincare ingredients. And they all contain nutrients and vitamins, all natural. And they go into your skin and they nutritionalize your epidermis, your dermis, and your hypodermis. And they don't wash away after a period of time because they're ingested. And you create new cells, healthy fat, healthy collagen, okay, healthy elastin. And that's what gives your skin that beautiful, beautiful, young, nutritional, healthy look. And that's what you want to do. And at Replenish Plus, we take great pride in doing that better than anybody else. Thank you. Hello again. In part one, understanding your skin, we covered certainly many aspects of the epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis, and the need for nutritional value being added into the skin to keep it young and healthy looking. I'd like to focus on just a couple of other aspects in this Understanding Your Skin Part 2. Specifically gearing into those spots that are on our skin. Sometimes we call them age spots. Some people call them liver spots. They really have nothing to do with the liver. They have to do with exposure to the sun. In most cases, we get too much melatonin, and that's what gives the darkening effect. In fact, a question that we may want to ask ourselves is that since the epidermis is actually replacing itself every 28 days, the whole surface of your skin has new cells on it. You may want to ask yourself, why do those spots stay there? Why do the wrinkles stay there? Why do some of the imperfections stay in there if it's all new cells? Well, for a very good reason. As we get older, the cells that we replace the dead cells with aren't as healthy as they were when we were younger, because we don't have as much natural nutrition in our body. We can't produce as many good cells. So we have to add nutrition in to the skin and into our body so that the cells we reproduce to replace the dead skins on the surface are as healthy as possible, and that gives it the young appearance. Yes, we want to increase our collagen, which is the firming of the skin, actually the surface and the foundation of the skin. Yes, we want to replace our elastin, or certainly build it up, because that's what gives the skin its suppleness, and also keeps the wrinkles basically off of our skin because we're elastic. But the other thing that we want to do is make sure that those new cells coming in can push aside as many of the bad cells, the so-called old age cells, the cells that are imperfection on the skin. We can lighten them or get them to go away if we can bring up new antibacterial cells, and if we can bring up healthy cells by feeding as much nutrition into it. One of the things that really helps in building up the elastin and also fights bad cells are the essential fatty acids, known as vitamin F in some cases, but they're basically omega-3, 6, and 9. Our body produces 9, but it can't produce 3 and 6. That has to come from another source. And those are actually the best fighters against cells to actually give us the healthiest cells possible. So what we do in all our Replenish Plus products is we make sure that all the botanical ingredients in there have the highest content of omegas as possible, the omega-3, 6s, and 9s. To have as much of certainly the antibacterial properties, and certainly as much of the vitamins to give us the nutrition. Remember, it's vitamins that we want in there, nutrients we want in there, enzymes to make it all work. And if we put that all together, then our skin can renew itself with healthy skins, and by renewing it, it will keep it to the point that our skin will stay as young as possible. And that's what you want to do for really giving life to the skin. And that is the whole secret of the Replenish Plus products. In this session we want to talk about sunscreens. A lot of people have misunderstandings about sunscreens, and what's really sad is that they can be the most helpful in one sense and the most dangerous in others. For example, vitamin D comes from the sun, and we don't want to block it all out because it's what really our body needs. It's actually something that increases our energy, gives us a very positive outlook on life, vitamin D, and it helps many of our organs. So if we block it entirely, we're not doing our body any favor. So you want to do it in the right mode and in the right amount. We tend to use more and more sunscreen because there's been so much advertising and so much marketing to tell us how to protect our body and stop skin cancer and stop all those bad things from aging that occurs from the sun. First of all, let us understand. The sun puts out ultraviolet rays, that's UV. And they put out 3 types. The sun puts out 3 types. A, and it comes in a short wave and a long wave. Puts out B, which comes in a single wave, and it comes and puts out UVC, which comes in a single wave. Well, UVC usually never reaches the Earth because it's stopped in the ionosphere. UVA and UVB does hit us and gets down onto the Earth. When we put a sunscreen on, we buy one that has an SPF rating, and sometimes it's 30 and 50, and now we've seen ratings go as high as 100. It's only in the United States that you can go above 50. In Europe, in Australia, and most parts of the world, they have outlawed any sunscreens above 50. It's not allowed, mainly because they're ineffective. And when you give a rating above 50, it's an ineffective amount because once you're at 50, you are protecting yourself from the sun at 99.7. And if you go to 100, maybe you get to a 99.8% if you're lucky, but unfortunately you add a lot more toxicity to get that 1/10 of 1%. So you only want to buy something that has an SPF 30 to 50. That's about the maximum that you want to put on your body. Another thing that comes into play, again in the United States, this is where Europe and Australia is ahead of us. In the United States, since there's no really FDA controls in the way that there should be about the number SPF, we can put on a rating in the United States SPF 30, for example, and then we can put on the same jar that will protect us from UVA and UVB. It's a blend. However, the SPF number only refers to UVB. In other words, if I have a UVB protection factor of 30, SPF 30, which means I can stay out in the sun 30 times longer than normal and still not have any more effect on my body damage, then that's where the 30 comes from. It's blocking the skin from the UV rays. However, if I only have a UVA rating of 1 protection, but a UVB rating of 30, I can put on the jar SPF 30 UVA UVB blend. And that gives you this false sense of security that you're protecting yourself from both ultraviolet rays. Think of UVB as being burned. That's what gives the color to your skin. Think of UVA as aging. That's the damaging ultraviolet ray. That's what gives you cancer. That's what gives you melanoma. That's what does damage to the skin and gives you the wrinkles. So to go out in the sun and go with a sunscreen that has an SPF 30 rating and stop the burning so you stay out there longer because your skin doesn't change color, you think you're protected, but in the meantime you're getting almost a total dose of UVA, which is doing the damage to your skin. So be cautious and be wary of what you are doing. And no matter what sunscreen you put on, no matter who provides it to you, don't stay out in the sun too long because the UVA rays are probably getting to your body. Now, there are two types of sunscreens that are available to you. Understand that melanoma is one of the fastest growing cancers in the United States at a rate of almost 4% increase per year. Yet people are lathering on more and more sunscreens. There's a reason for that, one of which we just stated, the fact that the UVB rating is what protects you from burn and you stay out longer, and the UVA is what gives you melanoma. And most sunscreens, except one type, does not give you hardly any protection against UVA. The second problem is the type of sunscreen you use. Most sunscreens use chemicals: oxybenzone, avobenzone, homosalate. Look on the jar of sunscreen that you're using, and if you see a long name, especially beginning with oxy or HOMA, then you are using chemicals. The problem with chemicals is that within a matter of 25 to 30 minutes, the chemicals break down into various elements because chemicals are compounds made up of different elements. And unfortunately, in virtually all chemicals, one of the elements is oxygen. And once the sun, the UVA rays, comes in and hits that chemical and breaks it up, then you end up with having free oxygen in your skin, and free oxygen is what damages cells. So actually, by putting on a sunscreen, especially with a chemical, you are actually opening yourself up to more attack and the more possibility of cancerous or toxin growths. So you want to stay away from any sunscreens that have chemicals. One of the most popular chemicals used in sunscreens in the United States is avobenzone. Unfortunately, that type of chemical is actually more toxic than the rest. Oxybenzone also fits into that category. You want to stay away from chemicals. So the one thing you can use is a sunscreen that has minerals, and that includes titanium dioxide or zinc oxide. Titanium oxide is pretty good, dioxide, is pretty good, but it's not as effective as zinc oxide. So the best sunscreen you can put on your body, which has the least, if almost zero toxicity, is a sunscreen made up of zinc oxide. Zinc oxide will protect you against UVA and UVB. In fact, if you go back in time and you look at some of the old photos of people on the beach, they used to, especially the people that are supposed to protect you out on the beach, they would put on sunscreen on their nose. It would be a white, pasty sunscreen. Well, that's zinc oxide. Most people don't like to use that because who wants to walk around with a white face? However, there are sunscreens now with zinc oxide in it that will give you the same protection but without that heavy white paste. What you want to make sure is when you buy zinc oxide, look on the jar. Make sure it says non-nano on the jar. Because one of the ways that people have made sunscreen so that the zinc oxide isn't as pasty is by breaking it down into nano-sized particles, which just means making it into very small particles. The problem with that is when you get a particle too small and the sun hits it, it can heat it up, boil it, and make the zinc separate from the oxygen, and you end up with free oxygen. If you get non-nano zinc oxide, it's a much larger molecule and doesn't break down under the sun except after long periods of time. So if you want to buy a sunscreen, get zinc oxide, non-nano, no chemicals, make sure there are no preservatives like BHT in it, and get that on your skin. And by the same token, even with that, don't stay in the sun for hours upon hours. Stay in the sun for an hour, 2 hours. I don't care what the SPF rating is. Do not stay in too long because eventually, whatever you put on your body will break down. You will end up with free oxygen. You will get the UVA rays coming into your body, and it will give you damage to your skin, and in the worst case, giving you cancer. Remember, in the United States, we do not give the protection to people on sunscreens the way we should under the FDA rulings because they're too loose. They're much tighter overseas. But whatever it may be, wherever you are, just make sure, buying a sunscreen, no chemicals. Buying a sunscreen, look at the ingredients. If you see BHT, which is a preservative used in about 80% of the sunscreens, that is directly linked to cancer, don't use it. Buy a sunscreen that's zinc oxide, non-nano, so it's large particles, doesn't break down, and gives you the full protection against both UVA and UVB. SPF 30 is more than enough. SPF 50 should be a limit, and you will now be in the safest mode you can be. At Replenish Plus, we do manufacture a sunscreen. We're not the only ones in the world that make non-nano zinc oxide, but we're pretty proud of our brand in the sense that we're the only ones that make a zinc oxide that is all food-grade ingredients, no toxic ingredients in it whatsoever, no chemicals whatsoever, and on top of it, it took us years, it's actually a patented design, but to figure out how to make it so that the pH level is in the alkaline state, which for a sunscreen is where you want to be, to give you, again, more protection against cancer. Cancer does not thrive well in alkaline. Most sunscreens, 90 to 95% of them, have a pH value in the 5 range, the acidic side, and unfortunately cancer thrives in acidity and dies in alkaline. So we have the only alkaline, food-grade sunscreen, non-nano, zinc oxide, that gives you a protection at about 35 to 38, and we're very proud of this product. We hope you'll use ours, obviously, but as a protection to yourself, don't use anything that's chemicals, that has preservatives that are harmful, and that are going to give you more chance of getting cancer than not by using it. And that's where we hope you will follow the rules from here on out. Thank you.